I've been playing drums for a few years now, and over the years, I've heard so much advice coming from different drummers of different levels that is just not that great for most of us. So in this video, I'm going to talk about it and try to debunk a lot of these pro tips that are given that aren't actually that good for you. Before we get on with the video, if you ever feel stuck playing the same fills and ideas over and over, I made a course called the Flow Freedom Framework. It's a step-by-step system to help you unlock flow, create fills and grooves on the spot, and finally sound confident behind the kit. Honestly, if there was just one thing I'd wish I'd been taught sooner that would have changed my drumming forever, this would be it. Check the link in the description, and now let's move on with the video. The first thing that I've heard a lot of people say is that you shouldn't listen to other drummers because doing that affects your own personal style. So the idea here is that you don't cloud your mind with what other drummers are doing, and you just practice alone, and you just work on your skills alone without getting any influences, and you just start to develop your own style that is personal to you in doing that. I think that is a giant load of crap, because the way art works and the way the world works in general is that everyone gets influenced by each other, and in doing that, things form. So you as a drummer should be listening to other drummers that are better than you so that you can learn and experience what they are doing and then try to be inspired by that. And here's what I actually think about this advice is the issue is when you just listen to one drummer. So if I just listen to Nate Smith only, and that's the only drummer I listen to when I listen to different tracks, and I put music on in the car and I was just casually listening, it was only Nate Smith. Then when I play drums, it would start to sound like Nate Smith because that's all I'm filling my brain with. But the beauty of art is that you can take all these inspirations and mend them all together to create your own style. So if I listen to Nate Smith, Lionel Lewis, Mike Portnoy, a little bit of metal, Chad Smith with rock and funk, and I listen to all these great drummers, and then I start building my own skills. All of my influences will mend together to create my own style. So if I never listened to any of those people, I wouldn't have better drummers influencing me, and that would realistically make me a worse drummer because I'm not getting that feeding from pros. So the tip of don't listen to other drummers because you won't develop your own style is a load of bollocks. Before we get to the next tip, I just want to tell you about Drumeo. If you are a drummer and you've spent time online, you'd know Drumeo. It's a massive educational platform with a bunch of online lessons where they get a lot of pros to teach you stuff. I have a free 30-day trial if you just click the link below in the description. Go check that out and let's move on. The next tip would be to practice with heavier sticks, or you take those same sticks and practice on pillows so there's less rebound. The idea here is that you have a normal set of sticks that you use, let's say it's 5A, and you start practicing with heavier ones on a pad like 5B or 2B that are not thicker and a lot harder to get around. The idea is that when you go back to your normal sticks, you'll have less resistance, so it will make you faster. So I get how that sounds in theory, and it makes complete sense. However, I've heard way too many stories of people I know and students that I've had that come from other teachers or just anecdotal things from other drummers, is that if you do this, you are way more likely to get an injury in your wrists. Because when your body gets used to doing something, playing with sticks, and you have a certain way of using your hands, your technique, you are used to using the sticks like that. And if you now add weight to that, it's not a good thing. So your body actually wants to use the same weight that it's used to, or if you go heavier, your body will start getting used to that weight. So then switching back to lighter sticks is where the damage happens, where your technique is used to those heavier sticks. I can't explain the exact science to you, but I can just tell you all the stories I've heard of a lot of people that this actually damages. I used to do this when I was growing up, and I didn't get injured, but the likeliness of you getting injured is a lot higher. So I just wouldn't recommend it. Same with playing on pillows. There's no rebound, so there's more force and impact on your wrists. And the more impact you put on your wrists, the more likely you are to get injured. You need to set your drums up in a certain way. So there are all these drummers that tell you how to set your drums up ergonomically. And I'm going to take a more liberal approach here, because there technically is a way of setting your drums up that is better for your body, better way of hitting the sticks on the drums, and a way that just makes everything more congruent. And I agree with that. What I don't agree with is having an extremely strict way of setting your drums up so that is the way you play, with your tom at a certain angle, and it needs to be that angle every time, and your cymbals at certain angles, and your drum throne at a certain height. Let me tell you what happened to me, and this is why this actually was a pretty bad thing that I used to do when I set my drums up in a very specific way. Is I used to go to this jazz festival where there were let's say 20 drum kits in different rooms, and everyone's moving from drum kit to drum kit and different room to different room. And what would always happen is when a drummer would come sit down on the drum kit in the room, everyone would have to wait for that drummer to start like moving all his stuff and setting it up, and it was just so irritating actually. And what would end up happening is if the drummer didn't do that and the guy was just like, come on, just perform, get on, play, we all want to play, the horns want to play, then that drummer would start sucking. They'd start hitting rims everywhere and they just wouldn't be able to play because it's not in the like setup that they used to. And the problem that I found is a lot of drummers really struggle to adapt to different setups. So if you right now went and sat on Benny Greb's drum kit, do you think you would be comfortable just playing without moving anything? And the answer is probably no. And this is a small thing that I think every drummer needs to actually work on, is playing well on different people's setups, because adapting is something that us drummers actually find very difficult. And that's why I think this whole thing of having your own very strict setup is not the greatest thing in the world. And it's not actually pro drummers that have told me this is how you need to do it. It's more middle amateurish pro drummers that have been like, yo, that's the setup you need to do. The actual pro drummers that are making money and are making a living from playing drums, they just go to the drum kit, they'll move it a little bit and then just play. Especially in the jazz world where guys are just getting on kits and playing and moving around. So the actual lesson in this point is you need to be more adaptable as a drummer when it comes to drum setups. The next tip that arguably made me suck at the drums is not burying the bass drum beater. So there's this thing where a lot of drummers will tell you when you play the bass drum that you need to have the bass drum beater rebound off of the drum head. They say that if you bury it, you're killing the sound and it's not resonating, and that it's actually not musical to play that way, and that the proper way is to play it and let it rebound. So again, there is truth behind that. I agree with that. However, most of us plebs, and actually most pros to be honest, absolutely stuff their bass drum with muffling, which means the bass drum's not as resonant as it would be without a whole bunch of crap inside the shell. So if there was no muffling in the drum and it was just a bare shell with nothing inside, you'd play it and then rebound the beater and it would go doom, which is like the musical way of the bass drum being played. But we all have pillows and towels and blankets inside there, so when you hit it, it just goes doom. And because of that, you don't actually need to rebound your thing. Pro drummers don't rebound unless they're playing jazz, again, because that sound actually matters. But most people actually, most pro drummers that I listen to and I'm influenced by, they all bury the beater. Anyone tells you don't bury the beater and you feel more comfortable playing actually burying the beater, you can just tell them that, like, really it's not that big of an issue. The next tip that a lot of people give drummers that actually is harmful is a lot of drummers, especially older guys, will tell you not to practice with a metronome. Out of this entire list, this is the dumbest advice that I've actually heard people say, and I hear people say it very regularly. Their logic is that if you don't practice with a metronome, you start to build a better sense of internal timing and feel and like better pocket, and it's just a bunch of crap. If you actually practice with a metronome and you actually train your body like to internalize the metronome by actually hearing it, and then you'd go away from the metronome, you're going to be a way better drummer. The metronome is just a tool, and it's a tool that you can use to get better. So like, why wouldn't you use it? A lot of old school drummers, they like the like push and pull of timing in music, which is still cool. But if you practice a lot with the metronome as a drummer, you're not going to end up sounding like a robot. You're just going to have a better sense of timing. And why would you not want that? Because that's the whole goal of being a drummer. So if you don't practice with a metronome, you're actually harming yourself. You're going to definitely be a worse drummer than you would be if you didn't practice with a metronome. So those are just 5 pieces of potentially harmful advice that I've heard over the years. Let me know in the comments what's the worst piece of advice you've ever heard about getting better at the drums. And I'll check you guys in the next video.